At 16,500 feet above sea level, deep in the Indian Himalayas, sits a glacial basin known as Roopkund. The air here is thin, and the nearest human settlement is a strenuous 5-day trek through treacherous mountain passes. For most of the year, the lake is frozen solid, but during a brief summer window, the ice melts away. When the water retreats, it reveals hundreds of human skeletons scattered along the shoreline, some still with preserved flesh clinging to the bone. In the late summer of 1942, a forest ranger named H.K. Modwall was patrolling this remote area when he stumbled upon the bone-littered shores. Because this was the height of the Second World War, Modwall's immediate fear was a stealth land invasion. British authorities suspected these were the remains of Japanese soldiers attempting to sneak into India through a forgotten mountain route. Investigators were immediately dispatched to the lake, but a quick physical inspection of the remains ruled out the military theory. The bones were brittle, partially mineralized, and visibly ancient. While that dismissed the threat of an invasion, it left behind a significant question. Hundreds of people had died simultaneously in a freezing, desolate vacuum, days away from any civilization or shelter. When anthropologists finally examined the skulls, they found a highly specific pattern of injury. Almost every victim suffered from unhealed, blunt force trauma, strictly concentrated on the crowns of their heads and the tops of their shoulders. This exact placement ruled out traditional mountain hazards. If they had been caught in an avalanche or a rockslide, the bones would show crushing injuries across the legs, ribs, and arms. Furthermore, investigators found 0 weapons on the site, eliminating the possibility of a battle. The trauma was caused by hard, round objects striking the victims directly from the sky. Hundreds of travelers were bludgeoned to death from the open sky, far above the reach of any human weapon or earthbound hazard. For centuries, the local villages surrounding the valley had passed down an oral tradition about the mountain goddess Nanda Devi. The folklore tells of an ancient king, Jasidwal, who embarked on a holy pilgrimage past the lake. Instead of maintaining the austere reverence required for the journey, the king brought dancers, musicians, and his pregnant wife. In the eyes of the goddess, this blatant arrogance corrupted her holy land. According to the legend, Nanda Devi's retaliation was swift and merciless. She unleashed a sudden, localized storm, raining down what the songs describe as hailstones as hard as iron to slaughter the entire royal retinue. For a long time, this was treated as a colorful morality tale. But as researchers looked closely at the physical evidence, they realized it served as an oral history waiting to be evaluated. Biomechanical scientists analyzed the cranial fractures to determine exactly what kind of impact could crack a human skull in that precise pattern. They calculated the required density, velocity, and size of the falling objects. The math provided an answer. The fractures perfectly matched the impact of hailstones roughly the size of a cricket ball, validating the legend of the iron hail. Next, radiocarbon dating placed the victim's time of death precisely around 800 CE, exactly when the legendary pilgrimage occurred. To reinforce this, excavations turned up fragments of bamboo parasols, identical to those carried by modern pilgrims today. Forensic science had validated local legend, providing a definitive end to a 1,200-year-old mystery. That consensus held until 2019, when an international team of scientists published the first genome-wide DNA sequencing ever conducted on ancient remains from India. They analyzed 38 distinct individuals from Roopkund to finalize the victims' identities. This scatterplot shows the genetic clustering of those 38 victims. Instead of plotting as a single, uniform population, the data splits into 3 completely separate genomic groups. The single-event hailstorm theory collapsed immediately. While the first group of 23 people carried expected South Asian ancestry, the second cluster defied all logic. 14 of the individuals had a genetic makeup rooted in the Eastern Mediterranean, most closely related to present-day Greece and Crete. Updated radiocarbon dating revealed that this Mediterranean group died around the year 1800, a full millennium after the South Asian pilgrims. 14 unrelated 19th-century Greek travelers died in the exact same remote glacial pool as a 9th-century Indian pilgrimage, separated by geography and 1,000 years of history. By the 1800s, international travel was documented in detail, yet there is a complete absence of historical records, missionary logs, or colonial dispatches mentioning any Mediterranean expedition perishing in the high Himalayas. Stable isotope analysis adds another layer of confusion. It proved these travelers had no recent markers of a marine diet, meaning they had integrated into inland trade routes, eating wheat and millet for decades before their deaths. Today, the site faces a new threat. Climate change is rapidly accelerating the lake's seasonal ice melt, exposing the remaining untested bones to harsh winds and brittle sun, causing them to decay faster than science can study them. Worse, unregulated trekking groups now visit the site regularly. Tourists routinely steal bones as souvenirs and stack skulls into pyramids for social media photos, actively destroying an unmapped archaeological crime scene. Roopkund remains an active cross-cultural graveyard. Humanity is on the verge of erasing one of the world's strangest historical paradoxes before the remaining evidence can be studied.